Cool.
Yes.
Hey, everybody. I think we are live, right?
Yes.
Perfect. All righty. Well, thank you guys for joining the call. I think there's going to be some folks that are rolling in a little bit late, but this is a recorded session, so we can go ahead and get started. It's good to see those of you who have joined who we're familiar with, and welcome to anyone that's new, that's jumping on for the first time, learning a little bit more about Glew Plus and the specific topic that we're going to talk about today. In today's session, we're going to review best practices, some new features that we've rolled out as it relates to our time frame comparisons in Looker. And so, there's no better person to do that than our senior BI analyst and developer, Mitch Harchis, who is joining us. He's going to go ahead and present his screen as we get kicked off and walk through a few different things, some LookML enhancements, some different ways to look at time series tables and things of that nature inside of Looker. This session will probably last around 30 or 45 minutes. And in the last 5-10 minutes, we'll open it up for a Q&A. So without further ado, Mitch, I'll let you go ahead and share your screen and we can get this kicked off.
Cool. Hey, everyone. Like Nick said, my name is Mitch. I'm our senior BI analyst here at Glew, and excited today to talk you guys through how we can do our comparison periods and kind of do different date comparisons in Looker, using kind of 3 different main ways to do that. So I am going to turn off my video and go ahead and share my screen, and we can get started. Okay, so Nick, if you could give me a confirmation that you can see my screen here.
Yep, we can see your screen. You're sharing Looker.
Awesome. Okay, great. Well, I am going to take everyone through a couple, 3 to be exact, examples of how we can do date, year over year, period over period comparisons. The first 2 I am going to go over are 2 different native ways to do it within Looker. And then the last way is a way that we have developed within Looker as kind of like a product enhancement to really dig into those period over period comparisons. So the first way that I'm going to talk through is just by using what Looker has as kind of preset table calculations. So I'm going to back up just a little bit here and reference what we're going to be working out of today is going to be our Shopify orders table. So the first thing I did was I just did a filter for a demo account, and then I just want to look at kind of the last 90 days worth of data. And the first thing I did was scroll down to our order date, which is, the transaction date of when your orders go through within Shopify. And I opened up that caret and clicked week because I want to kind of look at a week-to-week basis. So I brought week into our table. I'm going to go ahead and close that. And then I'm going to scroll down here, and we're going to open up the standard measures caret here. Don't worry about the comparison and current period measures yet. We will get to that. That's part of kind of that product enhancement I was talking about earlier. So for now, let's just kind of look at, let's say, sum of revenue. So sum of revenue here, and all of these are kind of pre-built measures that we've developed and put in there so that it's a kind of a one-click bring into the table. So we can go ahead and hit sum of revenue. And you'll see here that, okay, so we have in the last 90 days, this is our revenue kind of grouped by week. So you can see these are week timeframes. So something cool that Looker has kind of in its native functionality is if you click on this gear icon and go down to calculations, you'll see a couple of different kind of preset automatic measures or table calcs that you can do. So what we're going to look at is, for now, percent of previous. So we'll click on that, and that automatically brings in a totally new column of percentages. Now, the way to look at this is percent of previous So this is going to be a percentage of this current week's data. So we'll say the week of 5/2 compared to the previous weeks of 4/25. So you'll notice that it's 83% above the previous week. So you'll notice that, we have some high numbers here because this is where, we have the 103,000 compared to, the previous week before that, which was, 5,716. So that's a really easy way to do just a quick week over week comparison. This will also work for day over day or month over month. It all just depends on the kind of date selector that you choose here. So if I wanted to change that to a month, I could click month and it would do the exact same thing. So that's a really easy way to just do a quick month over month, week over week comparison. If we want to kind of figure out how we're going to visualize that, I'm going to go ahead and close this filters tab and we can open up the visualization tab here. So you'll see here, okay, we've got two lines. So one is our sum of revenue and then one is going to be our percent change. But, this kind of doesn't really tell you anything here because, this is a percentage and this is a revenue number. So what we can do from here is go over to our edit button, go over to our y-axis button. And from here, we can change this percent of previous to a new axis. So click and drag, close that out. And now you'll see that our sum of revenue is attributed to the left-hand axis and our percent of previous is on the right axis. You can see these are percentages. So there's a lot of cool calculations that they have in here. Like if you want to see a running total, you can hit running total and it kind of sums up revenue over the course of, all those weeks. But today we are just worried about the data comparisons over our time periods. So that is kind of the first way to do this. Hey, Nick, did we want to kind of take questions intermittently as I kind of go through this, or did we want to just kind of wait till the end to do that?
Yeah, I think either's fine. We'll have a dedicated time for QA and at the end, but as we go along, since this call is going to be broken up into kind of three main sections of what we're presenting, for anyone who's tuning in, if you do have a specific question around the section that we're presenting right now, feel free to go ahead and note that in the chat. And then we can always circle back if we're past that point.
Cool, thanks. And since I can't see the chat, will you just let me know if you do see one come through?
Absolutely. Yep.
Thanks. Okay, cool. Well, if we don't have any questions on this first method, I am now going to walk through our second method of date comparisons, and this is going to deal with custom measures. So this is an ability of Looker that's already, kind of in their native development kind of area, but the only thing about this is that you can only do this type of comparison with a field that's grouped that is not a date field. And I'll kind of get into that as we go through this. So for this example, I have selected a sales channel as kind of the field we want grouped by. And what we're going to do is have multiple columns that are showing different date ranges of data. So I already built this one for month to date, but what I'm going to do is create multiple columns here. We'll do one for year to date, week to date, etc. So you can kind of get kind of the gist of what's going on here. And like I said, we can do this grouped by sales channel. We can do it based off of day of the week. We can do it based off of, the device, but the only thing we can't do is do an actual date field. And I'll show you why in a second. So let's stick to sales channel for now. So I've already done the month to date kind of as an example. So what we're going to do is go to our custom fields section here on the left-hand side, and we're going to hit add and then custom measure. When that opens, we are wanting to look at revenue. So I'm going to type in revenue, go down to our Shopify orders table, and then the same thing, let's just hit sum of revenue for now. So we'll hit that, and let's call this year-to-date revenue. And the key part here is that we're going to add a filter for this measure. So what we can do here is type in order date. Make sure that we're pulling from the same table. So we'll scroll down to Shopify orders, hit order date. And then we can say that we want it to be is in the year 2022. So that will be year to date. Hit save. Hit run. And now for our online store sales channel, we have a column of our month-to-date revenue, and we have a column with our year-to-date revenue side by side. I'm going to replicate that process one more time just so we can be crystal clear on that. So we go to custom fields, custom measure, sum of revenue from the orders table. And let's call this like, I don't know, last 3 months revenue. Go down to our filters. We'll filter by date again. And this time we can do is in the last 3 months. If you aren't familiar with kind of the date selectors here, there's so many different options of how to do this. You can do, ranges where you have the calendar that you can choose ranges from. You can do is in the last X, seconds all the way to years. Is in the previous like 3 weeks, is any time. So there's a lot of functionality here that Looker has pre-built in, which is awesome. But for now, let's just do in the last 3 months. Oops, didn't mean to do that. We'll hit save. And then same thing, we'll hit run one more time. And now we have our last 3 months worth of revenue there. So this is how you can take a field that's not a date field and group by, whatever this column may be. And then any time frame that you want, you can do with these custom measures here, which is really cool. So let's say I wanted to look at something else. I could just remove the sales channel. We can go back to our orders table and let's do day of the week. So we can bring day of the week in instead. This might take a second. Cool. Now we have our different days of the week and our month to date, year to date, and last 3 months worth of revenue. Same thing. If you want to now open up the visualization tab, we have some great visual examples here now, and you can change, between your different bars and lines, etc. So super easy to use that. That is the kind of custom measure aspect of Looker. Obviously, the reason that you can't use a date field here is that you are changing the dates between the numbers in these different columns. So that would kind of mess up the row. You wouldn't be able to group by the actual date. So this is a great way to do time frame comparisons if you don't need the date on the x-axis of whatever visual you're creating. Cool. So that was our second thing I wanted to talk about with time frame comparisons, please, enter in the chat if you have any questions in regards to how that works, or, any of the above. I'll give you like half a minute here, and then we can move on to the next one.
Yeah, we'll wait a little bit for any of those to come in. And I think just while we're waiting, in case anyone has a question, it's really cool to see you kind of put this together, Mitch. And I think one of the main differences versus building a table where, one column is 2021, the next one's 2022, we actually have the ability now to analyze different durations of time within that same table, breaking it down by this dimension. So definitely a useful tactic, especially for something like an executive C-suite report or a very high level report where, you're really trying to just get a snapshot. Hey, what are my figures month to date on Sundays? How's that look year to date? So it's a really good snapshot time series table.
Yeah, exactly.
So we do have a question from Yvette.
Okay.
He's asking, is there any benefit or use case where the first method over the second or vice versa? So that, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it really depends on, what you are trying to do. I personally would probably, I think between these two, the main difference being that with this version that we're looking at now, that we can't have the date as the x-axis. So we can have, our day of the week or sales channel as the x-axis, but we're not able to have the date down there. With this example, we're kind of able to see the change over a period of time. So I think that would be kind of the main difference between the two. And this is kind of a more preset, ability to look at. So with this, you can only see your, the percent of previous. So it's really just the previous week or previous day compared to this day, or, the percent change between the two. With this, you're able to, I just did month to date, but, you can do any sort of date ranges that you want. You can, add in, any kind of filters that you want as well. So this one's a little more powerful, but not able to have the dates on the x-axis. And that's exactly why that we've spent, a lot of dev time over the past month or two developing this third point that I'm about to show you, and how you're able to kind of put all of this into one.
Yeah, great question there.
Cool. Well, if there's no other questions, then I'll go ahead and move on to our last point here. Are we good to go, Nick?
Yeah, good to go.
Cool. Okay. So I'm going to back out of this a little bit.
And maybe, Mitch, before we jump into this, would you mind if you just share some context around what really sparked us to go off and develop this solution that you're about to show?
Yeah, definitely. So I kind of hit on this a little bit before, but so with the two methods that I kind of just walked through, they're viable ways to kind of look at, your comparisons. But as I mentioned, you're not able to have kind of your date on your x-axis and do, different date ranges compared to another, or a period over period, year over year, where you have date as, the x-axis, and you're able to see kind of over time that comparison. So that was a big ask of a lot of our customers. So we decided that it was well worth our development time to kind of put together a way that we can do this. So what I'm about to show you is a way to do that. And you're able to kind of compare any date range to any other date range, and, kind of see that over time change in comparison between two metrics. So the first thing that I wanted to mention is that this has been rolled out to all of our e-commerce integrations, all of our ad platform integrations, all of our ERP systems. So like not Amazon, but it has been pushed to Amazon, but ERP systems like BrightPearl, QuickBooks, NetSuite, and all of our email marketing platforms. I think from there, we have kind of hit all of the big integrations. So if you are in Looker and you are trying to do a time frame comparison for an integration that doesn't have it, please reach out to us and we can add it in for you. It shouldn't take too long. So the first thing I wanted to draw your attention to is we're going to use this Shopify orders table still. And you're going to notice that there are now two fields under the filter only fields called comparison order date range and current order date range. Whenever we are doing a comparison date range, we want to make sure that we have both of these selected in the filter area above. We're going to leave those there for now. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to scroll down to this field called current period date. Now, this is super important. This is the date field that is connected in the background through the development to these new date range fields. So whenever doing a comparison date range, we always want to use this current period date field, not any of the other date fields like order date or transaction date, or, it kind of changes based off what integration you're in. But this will never change. It will always be called current period date. So let's go ahead and open that up. And let's say that in this example, we want to look at this year compared to last year broken down by month. So what we can do is go down here and hit month name. So that's how we want to have our data grouped. The next thing we're going to do is scroll all the way down, and you know how we were working with the standard measures earlier? These are all the measures that you use on a daily basis, not with the comparison periods. These are all the ones that are not attached to the comparison date range. So we're going to go ahead and close that. And for now, we're just going to look at current and comparison. So let's go ahead and choose our current period revenue. And under comparison, our comparison period revenue. After that, and actually, sorry, ignore these numbers. This is from a previous run. After we select the two fields that we are trying to compare, so we want to compare revenue from whatever X our current period is and whatever X comparison period we want. So that's when we go back up to these filters up here. For now, for our current date range, and we want to say we're going to do this year versus last year, we can hit is in the year 2022. And then for our comparison order date range, we can say is in the year 2021. All right, so we'll go ahead and hit run. And we will sort by our month. And then sometimes this null value occurs there. So all you'd have to do here is just go to filter, and we can just do, for now, is greater than 0, just to get that null value out of there. Cool. So our current period, we have 2022. Our comparison period is 2021. So now we have a month-by-month comparison of those that revenue metric. So the next thing we can do is open back up our visualization tab, and we've got a pretty cool graph of kind of how we are looking compared to the previous year so far. We can also, switch that to a bar graph if we want. So for our dummy data, looks like they're doing pretty good so far this year compared to last year. So that is kind of one example of how to do that. I had another one kind of built out just to show you kind of a different way to do this. So you'll notice the same thing, but instead of selecting our month name, what I did was just selected actual days. And then same thing I selected current period revenue and comparison period revenue. But up here, I kind of envisioned more of a period over period type data analysis. So our current date range, I just did a range from July 13th to today, July 27th. And then for the comparison, I did the 2 weeks prior to that. And I hit run. Same thing. We can just filter out that null value there. Okay, cool. Close the filter and I'll open up the visualization. And here is our period over period analysis. So this is our current 2-week period, the blue line, and then the previous 2 weeks is the comparison, the teal line prior to that. So this is a really easy way to do a period over period analysis. And then, obviously you can expand this date range. So if you wanted to look at the last 3 months compared to the 3 months before that, you can do that. There's also kind of ways to hard code that. So you can do kind of, use any of your in the past, X 30 to 60 days so that it's always dynamic, et cetera. So you can definitely play around with a lot of those options there. Okay. Nick, is there anything that you can think of that I did not hit with this that would be worthwhile showing?
No, I think you covered everything. The only thing that I would mention, just if people are wondering, like, what would this maybe allow me to do? I would say if you're someone who, takes value from Glew Pro, a lot of the charts in our Glew Pro application basically do this exact same thing in the charts. And you'll see that one of the period lines is blue, one of the period lines is gray. And so this functionality will allow you to recreate that. But being that you're in Looker, it's going to give you that flexibility to pull data from any plus sources that you need to make any calculations, to customize the chart a bit further, and select what type of chart you want to use. So just something more so a note for anyone who's like, how can I, what is this good for? What does this allow me to do? I'd say, that's a major thing is, using that as kind of a building block per se, to go and expand upon things that you see throughout the Glew Pro app.
Yeah, it's a great point. We can definitely open this up to questions, Nick, if you don't have anything else. So feel free to write in if you have any other examples you'd like me to walk through, or any questions about the 3 different methods that I have walked through here.
Yeah, definitely. I'll keep an eye out for those questions. And Mitch, the only other, actually, Yvette just had a question. Can you add another line that displays the year over year comparison, so it has period over period and year over year in the same graph?
I don't believe that's possible right now. At this point, we wouldn't be able to do that because there's only 2 filters here, the comparison and the current. So you would probably just have to kind of do the, save this as a look, do the explore from here, and change to a year over year and kind of have those side by side for now. But yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, that is a great question. Mitch, only other thing, and we'll keep an eye out for more chats that come through. Only other thing that I can think of as it relates to looking at data side by side, and I know we'll have a dedicated webinar focused on, leveraging pivot tables to the full extent. Mm-hmm. The only other thing, if we do want to show it really quick, is just pivoting by something like month or year when you're building a table, to have that, not so much the percentage difference between the two, but just having the pivoted column be some sort of date. which will break things down in a similar fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go to this example and go ahead and remove this. Are you thinking maybe, like group it by, so let's do the same thing where we did Dave. So I'm clicking day of the week, and we've got our sum of revenue just from our standard measures. So let's go ahead and hit run. We still have the filter in the last 90 days. So this will actually be a good example for month because it'll only show 3 columns here.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yep. So once this is done.
And then once you finish this, Todd's also got a question that we can circle back to.
Awesome. So now once this is done, we have our day of the week and we have our sum of revenue. We can open up the order date. And let's say we want to look at this broken out by the couple of months that are contained in the last 90 days. What we can do is go down to the month field here and hit this button here for pivot data. We'll go ahead and hit run. Cool. And now we have broken down by day. We have different columns for summer revenue for April, May, June, July. So the pivot functionality is very powerful and pretty similar to that of Excel. So you can pivot by any field that you really want here that's not a measure. So, if we wanted to pivot by country code and look at your different countries over this, time frame for the day of the week. So another good way of doing period comparison. So yeah, great call there, Nick.
Awesome. Thank you for showing that. It was a great example. And Todd's question says, can you build yesterday, week to date, quarter to date, year to date, and compare to last year as well? So I think, and I'll let you answer this, Mitch, but I would think that the second option that you reviewed with the custom measures would probably be the preferred method there, Todd. And Mitch, do you have that pulled up where we could click back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So the one thing in Mitch, I would assume that you can reference the month-to-date revenue in an a table calculation, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So Todd, this basically screen where you built the custom measure defining the date for each individual column. That's how you would get the side-by-side breakdown for week to date, quarter to date, year to date, and last year. And then from there, if you wanted to do any sort of calculations, percent differences, anything like that, you will have the ability to reference those new columns that you made as measures in the add calculation section.
Yeah. I can run through a quick example there and just kind of show you. So let's just envision that this last 3 months revenue was, current year, and was last year, and this year-to-date revenue is current year. From this example, we can hit add calculation, and we would type in our last 3 months minus the year-to-date. Close that off in the parentheses, and then divide that by it's current minus previous divided by previous, correct? For percent change? Yeah.
Yes.
Do that as a percent, and we'll call this year over year percent.
Yep, that's a great example.
And now we've got our year over year percentage. If we envision that this column is last year instead of this last 3 months compared to that. So I hope that answered your question, Todd. So I think in the example that you put together, I think our method number 2 here is definitely going to be the best way for you to accomplish that.
Yeah, And he did have Todd had a follow-up question as well, which is a really good one. And it says, do you have to update the month-to-date measure each month? And that's kind of where those dynamic filtering options come into play.
Yeah.
So if you drill into that, Mitch, and just edit one of those or make a new one, that's fine.
Well, I was just going to show you. So this month-to-date revenue, is this month. So it's not a static date range that I selected. I chose is this month. If I wanted to do I can do is this week. So it's always week to date. Is this quarter, year, etc. You also have the ability to in the last 1 month. So it's always in the past month, or if you want to say is in the past, I always want to see the last 30 days. So definitely a way to make it dynamic so that you don't have to, continuously go in and update the dates that are run behind these columns.
Yep. One more follow-up from Todd. Is there a way to define month if using a 4-5-4 calendar? That is a great question, Todd. If you'd like to reach out to, just because it's long or short answer is we do have customers leveraging other retail calendars. We have a solution for uploading those and getting those calendars into Looker so that rather than referencing the Gregorian dates, you can reference those retail calendar dates. So if you wouldn't mind reaching out to your account rep, I work directly with those folks and can help support them in getting you some details around doing that.
Awesome.
All right, let's do, it looks like we're at 37 minutes in, which is pretty much where we thought we'd be when we kicked this off. So we will, let's give it a couple more minutes unless there, in case there's any questions. And then if not, we can wrap things up.
Sounds good.
And while we're waiting for any of those questions, it's a good time to just mention for anyone that joined, if there's a specific topic that you guys are keen to learn more about as it relates to Glew Plus and Looker, or something that comes up very frequently within your business, please feel free to reach out to your account rep with details around what it is that you're hoping to see in an upcoming webinar. We do take those into consideration, and we like to have our customers helping driving, the topics that we showcase in these in ways that we can, be a solution that helps to achieve what you're trying to achieve. So just keep that in mind as you're starting to work through Looker and Glew Plus. Going to give it one more minute, Mitch. I just did a last call in the Q&A section to see if there's any other questions, and then we'll wrap it up.
Sounds good.
All right. I think that's it for today. Mitch, thank you so much for walking through all of that and the 3 solutions as it relates to timeframe comparisons. This webinar has been recorded, and we will share that with anyone who's joined today or signed up. So really appreciate everyone's time joining, and looking forward to hopefully seeing a lot of your faces on the future webinars that we do. Thank you, guys. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.